Ian. Every Fallout player remembers their first companion, and most of them remember Ian. But not for the goofy good times they've had, but because Ian kept putting a 10mm round through them. You see, he's a former Crimson Caravan guard, recovering from a wound in Shady Sands, and you can recruit him for 100 caps or for free if you're smart enough, but if you're really smart enough, you wouldn't recruit him at all. Because if you give him a 10mm SMG, which most players do, because it's the first decent gun you find at Vault 15, there's a good chance he'll go burst mode on you when you encounter enemies. And this has been joked about by the community for decades, to the point where even Fallout 2 acknowledges it. A low intelligence chosen one can mention that they're traveling with someone named Ian, who kept burst shooting them from behind. In fact, Ian's own tabletop card and Magic, the Gathering card, both reference the friendly fire, so even Bethesda and Wizards of the Coast are in on the joke. But to make things worse, his sprite is similar to raiders you encounter in the Wasteland, so you can't even tell him apart from the enemies he's supposed to be fighting. This was most likely because Ian was never really meant to be a companion in the first place. One of the game's designers, Jesse Heinig, has admitted Ian was a test case to see if the engine could even handle NPCs following you from map to map, and companions were a last-minute addition that the team just didn't have time to flesh out. So what you were left with was a half-baked companion who thought friendly fire meant firing on your friends. Pariah Dog. Most companions in Fallout at least try to help you, even if they fail miserably at it, but the Pariah Dog really doesn't even pretend. Even though it's a mangy, skeletal mutt that only shows up in a random encounter in Fallout 2, it has already built a reputation across New California as a walking disaster. It had caused a plague that wiped out several Wastelanders, Brahmin, and even a Deathclaw. So if you fail a luck check, which the game rolls every 10 seconds while you're on that map, well, the creature forces itself into your party, no questions asked. Now the moment it joins, your luck drops to 1 unless you're gifted, and you get slapped with the jinxed trait, and which causes critical failures to skyrocket for your entire party. So now every gun in your squad has a solid chance of jamming, misfiring, or blowing up in someone's hands, and the dog responsible for all of it does absolutely nothing in combat except run away. And so you'd think you just need to get rid of it, right? Well, good luck, because the Pariah Dog has 750 hit points, which is absurdly tanky for something that contributes nothing. And so your options are either to slowly chip away at its health yourself, walk into the electrified floor at the Sierra Army Depot, or just shove it into the organ extractor, which nets you 2 human brains and negative 200 karma for your trouble. And if you manage to kill it with a 0 damage critical hit, the game bugs out, the dog dies, but its debuffs stay permanently, and it keeps occupying a companion slot you can never reclaim. A lot of people in the Fallout community call it the single worst companion in the entire franchise, and nobody has ever argued otherwise. Clover. You don't actually recruit this companion, you buy her. For only 1,000 caps, or 500 if you're decent with the barter skill, you can purchase this poor thing from Eulogy Jones at Paradise Falls, and only if you're running evil karma. Which already puts a bad taste in most players' mouths, before she even says a word. But a closer look at things makes it even worse. You see, Clover was systematically broken by her owners, until eventually, her original personality was completely replaced with complete loyalty to whoever's holding her. It's so bad that she calls Eulogy Daddy, and refuses to speak to other men without his permission. But the second you make the purchase, that devotion just transfers to you. She doesn't process freedom, doesn't question the arrangement, and will happily start blasting at anyone opposed to you, even her former owner, Eulogy Jones, if you decide to attack him. Now, as a companion, Clover has solid HP and has the highest carrying capacity of any human follower in Fallout 3, but that's where the positives end. She has no personal quest, no companion arc, and no real dialogue beyond calling you lover. Unfortunately, her character isn't written in any way that engages with her situation in a meaningful way. And I mean, think about it this way. If she's really just following orders from Eulogy, doesn't that make her a terrible person as well? Brainwashing aside, she's probably done some horrifying things like what happened with poor Bumble, and so players have called this out for years. Her backstory has all the ingredients for something powerful, but none of it really goes anywhere. Preston Garvey. No companion in Fallout 4 has a more tragic backstory, but a more insufferable gameplay loop than Preston Garvey. This man watched 20 people dwindle to 5. He survived the Quincy attack, lost Colonel Hollis to a traitor named Clint, dragged civilians through a ghoul-infested Lexington, and by the time you meet him in Concord, he's so broken that he later admits he was ready to let go. Now that's a genuinely powerful character arc, but that gets buried in all of the freaking Radiant quests. The freaking Radiant quests, man. Every single time you talk to Preston after recruiting him, he assigns up to 3 settlement missions. Defend this, clear that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's just no off switch with this guy. And the quests are procedurally generated, they just never stop, and they stack in your quest log until the Pip-Boy looks like a to-do list for the entire Commonwealth. health. It got so bad that hating Preston became one of the biggest memes in the Fallout community, to the point where Bethesda themselves referenced it by putting a hostile player named P. Garvey in the Fallout 76 gameplay trailer. And the worst part is, you can't just ignore him and keep him as a combat buddy. If you attack a single Minuteman, he permanently cuts ties. If you side with the Nuka World Raiders, he turns hostile along with the entire faction. He's a companion who demands moral consistency from you while offering zero flexibility in return, and who turns every conversation into a job assignment. Preston Garvey is the only companion in Fallout history where the community needed mods just to make him bearable to be around. Cass. Rose of Sharon Cassidy, or just Cass, is a whiskey-drinking caravan owner with no caravan left, sitting at the Mojave Outpost bar, drowning her problems when you first meet her. She's the daughter of John Cassidy from Fallout 2, she was written by Chris Avallone, and she has more ambient dialogue than almost any other companion in New Vegas. So why is she here? Because Cass is one of the most divisive companions in the franchise when it comes to actually traveling with her. She's the only companion in New Vegas who actively reacts to your karma. Drop below -100 and she'll confront you, which you can talk your way out of with a speech check of 65. Hit -150 and she confronts you again. Push past -250 and she leaves permanently, and she's the only companion who requires a skill check just to recruit in the first place, on top of having to complete a quest to convince her to sign over her caravan. Her companion quest, Heartache by the Number, has 2 endings. One where you gather evidence and deliver it to a ranger, and one where you go full revenge and wipe out the Crimson Caravan and the Van Graffs yourself. But players who go for the revenge route often find that Cass becomes a liability afterward because her karma system essentially punishes you for playing the way she just encouraged you to play. And her combat contributions are pretty underwhelming too. Her default caravan shotgun is weak, and she charges into fights face first without much regard for self-preservation. Some players love her for the personality, while others finish her quest and send her straight to the Lucky 38. Veronica Santangelo. She punches things. That's Veronica's entire combat identity. A Brotherhood of Steel scribe who runs into battle with a power fist while you're trying to line up shots at range. Veronica Santangelo is a 27-year-old journeyman scribe from the Mojave chapter, and her whole deal is that she's watching the Brotherhood slowly destroy itself through isolationism, and nobody in charge will listen to her, which is a compelling arc if you think about it. But the problem players keep running into is that her melee-only approach makes her a nightmare in hardcore mode. She charges Deathclaws, she sprints into groups of fiends, and she goes down fast when the damage comes in faster than Stimpaks can fix. Her personal quest, I Could Make You Care, sends you hunting for technology to convince Elder McNamara that the Brotherhood needs to change. But no matter what you bring back, it doesn't work. Because in the end, the Brotherhood chooses extinction over adaptation, and Veronica is eventually left devastated. If you convince her to leave and join the followers of the Apocalypse, rogue paladins show up and just off the outpost, killing everyone. And Veronica blames herself for it. So the emotional payoff for investing in her storyline is watching her lose twice, regardless of what you choose. Some players also find her personality grating over long play sessions, her quips land early, but wear thin after hours of hearing the same observations repeated. And that's the thing. She's not really a bad person. But in a game with Boone, EDE, and Raoul as options, she gets outclassed in both utility and personality pretty quickly. Strong. If you want a companion who hates almost everything you do in Fallout 4, Strong is your guy. Pick a lock, he dislikes it. Hop in power armor, he dislikes it. Hack a terminal, dislike. And you can't expect less from an Institute super mutant who was locked in a cell at the top of Trinity Tower because his own brothers got so fed up with him rambling about the milk of human kindness that they caged him. And then they started taking bets on how many times he'd bounce if they threw him off the building. See, a radio host named Rex Goodman came to the tower to read Shakespeare to the super mutants, and Strong took a line from Macbeth completely literally. Convinced that there's actual milk out there that gives humans their secret power, and that if he drinks it, super mutants will finally dominate. Which is a funny premise for about 15 minutes, until you realize this is his entire personality for the rest of the game. He has no personal quest. He can't be romanced. Bruh, why would you even? And he can only wear super mutant armor, which offers less protection than a basic set of unmodified metal armor. And he refuses to crouch when you enter sneak mode. He's like a disapproving dad. And if you've actually had one of those, well, I'm sure he's not as insufferable as this fella. But the best way to earn his approval is to kill things and eat them with a perk, which is not exactly compatible with how most people play the game. And his perk, Berserk, which gives you 20% more melee damage when your health drops below 25%, is so situational that most players never even notice it activates. Every other super mutant companion in the franchise, Fox, Marcus, Lily, brought something to the table beyond being aggressively annoyed by your existence. Strong just watches you play Fallout 4 and disapproves. X688 is a Gen 3 synth courser. the Institute's elite retrieval unit, who views the Commonwealth with the kind of smug superiority that makes you want to leave him at Libertalia and never come back. You can't even recruit him until deep into the Institute questline, after completing Mankind, Redefined, and starting Mass Fusion, which means most players who side with the Railroad, Brotherhood, or Minutemen will never interact with him at all, but the ones who do meet him kinda wish they hadn't. You see, X688 has no real arc and no companion quest. He can't be romanced, but for the love of Ugg Qualtoth, why would you? And you'd think for such an advanced robot, he'd have more personality. But his max affinity speech hints at something deeper. The idea that he actually might be more than just a soulless machine is compelling, but the game never really follows through with it. Battle-wise, he brings problems too. Because despite being a courser, which the game hypes up as one of the most dangerous things in the Commonwealth, his health is identical to every other human companion, and he has 0 innate damage resistance or energy resistance, which is bizarre considering other coursers you fight in the game are significantly tougher. Bringing him near the Railroad HQ automatically turns the faction permanently hostile. If Dogmeat gets hurt, he responds with, "Stupid animal, what were you thinking?" While every other companion treats the dog with some basic decency. His perk, Shield Harmonics, gives a flat +20 to energy resistance, which sounds fine until you realize how many better perks exist from companions you actually enjoy spending time with. He is a walking, talking NPC that happens to follow you around. And those were Fallout's worst companions. Got a companion that drove you insane? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more Fallout lore.